So you spoke highly of the Avengers, and then you end up playing bass for them.
Yeah, I know.
How did that happen?
Jimmy Wilsey, the original bass player, passed away in Christmas 2018. Jimmy was the second bass player they had in the early days. They had Jonathan Postel was the first bass player who named the band the Avengers, but he wanted the band to musically go more towards a poppy kind of, flaming groovy sort of sound, whereas Penelope and Greg and Danny wanted it to be a punk band. I mean, they were into that. So they parted ways, and then Jimmy had the balls to tell those guys one day, I got to be your bass player, when he saw him at a gig playing. So he was shooing, he fell in there. And they were really amazing. I mean, the Zeros played with them many times. We used to go see them at the Mabuhay, the 330 Grove, and whatever. And they were just such a great package, they looked like they belonged together. And I mean, Penelope was such an amazing front woman. I mean, beautiful, very striking, very powerful, energy. And Danny was just a monster drummer, just pushing, really well. And Greg and Jimmy, I mean, they just fit so good together. And they ended up opening up for the Sex Pistols.
Yes.
With the Nuns on the bill.
That's right. On the last show before they...
Yeah, and the whole thing was that the Avengers were going to open up, the Nuns were going to be in the middle, and the Pistols were going to headline, and then the manager for the Pistols decided that the Avengers should be in the middle. And I think the Nuns got really mad about that. But that's how it went. And then the manager for the Pistols and Steve Jones really liked the Avengers to the point where they were talking management, and then Steve Jones did produce 3 or 4 tracks for them. Uh-huh. Yeah. They're on the Pink Album recording. I always liked them best because they were just so great. And then in 2018, Jimmy passed away. And shortly after that, in early 2019, I got an email from Penelope. Says, hey, will you play some memorial gigs for Jimmy, play bass in the Avengers? I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is crazy, because they were my favorite band back then. I said, I've been waiting 40 years for this, so let's go, And so that's how I ended up connecting with them, and then we played the Echoplex. That was really great, and the Dills got back together. Well, it was Chip with his stepson and his stepson's friend, and they were really great. And there was a lot of other bands. And we did that gig. We did a gig I'm trying to remember. We did 2 gigs. I remember that. I think the first gig we did up in San Francisco. I think it was the Great American Music Hall. And then we did the one at Echoplex. And then that was it, And then a month goes by, and I get an email from Penelope. Do you want to go on tour for 6 weeks supporting Stiff Little Fingers?
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what the fuck? All right, I got to make it work somehow. Let's go. And yeah, we hit the road, man. It was amazing. We did so many gigs, and it was all theaters and House of Blues. No small stuff. It's amazing.
So,
and that's how I met this Levine's guy, Jamie, the bass player.
Okay. Oh,
he was the roadie for Stiff Little Fingers. And in some of those tours, Greg's guitar amp blew out, and so Jamie just jumped in. He had no responsibility towards us, but he just went ahead and helped us out, and it was really great.
Respect. Wow.
Yeah, and so I was like, man, this guy. And that happened a few times. I had a bass amp blow up, and he did the same thing for me too.
Wow.
And so and we all made friends on that tour, and then I saw that he was coming out, and he contacted me and said, hey, I'll be at the Tower Bar. It's like, come and hang out at see the band. And I'm like, see the band? I want to play with you guys.
Yeah.
And luckily Letty was booking it and squeezed us in there,
So how did Hector Penalosa Gang start?
Well, I've always had these little solo bands, and that's one of a few. Some years back, I had a group called My Revenge, which was basically, we don't play a lot of the same songs we play now, but that was some co-workers of mine at Taylor. And then after that, I had Neko, with Nico on bass and Adrian Nico on drums, Adrian on bass, and we would play like 30 minutes at the Riviera before the Baja Bugs would play the rest of the night, and that was fun. And after Neko, I didn't really have any like solo band. And then my brother introduced me to Allin, the guitar player, and Matt, the bass player. And Victor was the drummer in the beginning. But man, he's all over the place. He's got 3-4 bands that he plays with. And so that became a scheduling problem. And finally, when the Dragons no longer were playing, I always felt like Jarrett's got to be the guy. He's the guy for this band. He's a great drummer. I love that guy. He's such a great person to hang out with.
Yeah.
Easygoing, fun.
Great drummer too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like playing with Dragons so much. It was him. Don't get me wrong. The songs are great and it's fun, and I like playing with Mario and Kenny. But man, Jarrett's just so solid. It's such a pleasure to have something like that, to interact with. And so I thought, man, if I get him in the HP gang, it would be great.
So Baja Bugs, I guess we should talk about that, because
okay.
you said that's been going on for over 20 years.
Yeah, the Baja Bugs.
So how did that start and why? And tell me about it. Well, you're a Beatles fan.
Well, the first thing I want to clarify is that it was never a plan. It was an accident that lasted 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's the longest thing you've been in, I guess.
Yeah, when I first moved back here from San Francisco, and I didn't really have a job, but I had some savings and I had a bunch of stuff, and my brother was always like such a rock and roll fan of a lot of things. He would go to the Beatles conventions in LA and he would buy bootleg VHS tapes of Beatles concerts and what have you, interviews. Usually those situations were like, there'd be Beatles conventions at a hotel, and a guy selling the bootleg videos would rent a room, and he stocked all the dresser drawers full of videos, and then by word only, be like, go to room 236. This guy's got that, and everybody goes up there, do. And so my brother had this huge collection when I moved back down here, and so I got this idea. I'm gonna make Beatle bootleg videos and make my own covers and sell them at Kobe's, the Swap Meet, or the Spring Valley Swap Meet. And I was doing that, $10 a pop, making a couple $100 a day. It wasn't too bad, That's before DVDs killed it, because then DVDs came around. There's a whole other format. But anyway, so I'm at the Spring Valley Swap Meet one day, and this kid comes walking by with a snack cart, and he says, I got Beatle videos. Yeah, he says, I want to buy some, but I get paid at the end of my shift. Are you going to be here like around 2:30? I said, I'll wait for you, come back. I'll wait for you. Comes back, buy some videos. I gave my number. Look, I got many more at home. You can always come over and pick and choose, and I'll double them for you.
You did that because he was a fan.
Yeah, he was a fan, and he seemed like a cool kid. And then we became friends because we had Beatles interest. And then maybe almost a year went by. He goes, making plans. My girlfriend and I were going to get married, and we want to have a Beatles band at the reception, and I'm going to hire this band from Hollywood. They were called Mop Tops. They were very well known. And so, the kid's making money at the swap meet selling snacks, pushing a cart. It's not exactly rich, right? So then he calls me and goes, I'm really bummed out. I can't afford the band from LA. They want $4,000 to come down here for an hour, And me with my big mouth. I said, well, look, what about if I get some musicians together, and we'll play an hour's worth of Beatles music for you for $400. He goes, okay, let's do it. And so then I got my brother to play drums. I had my friend Frank Barajas, who lived down here. Now he lives in Ventura, but he got on rhythm guitar and vocals. And then I got Xavier from the Hoods and the Loons, not the Loons, but the Trebles and the Hoods, to play lead guitar. And so he plays with he was playing with Andrew Rasmussen sometimes.
We ran into Jay from the Hoods in Melbourne.
Oh yeah, Jay. Yeah, well, yeah, he used to sing with. Yeah, he used to be roommates with Jay Xavier, and they played in the band.
Oh, okay.
And so then I said to them, "Hey, guys, want to do this thing? It's it's only for like an hour, and they're gonna pay us $100 each, $400 for the whole thing. Yeah, let's do it." So we started practicing, And I never, it wasn't my intention to keep it going. I was just going to help my friend, and it was over. And we got together, we practiced a lot, and I remember during some of the rehearsals, Javier started getting all weirded out because Xavier, he's like, hey man, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not really George Harrison, And I'm like, guess what, Javier? I'm not fucking Paul McCartney. Basically, let's just get to work, all right? Just don't worry about it, man. Come on. It was funny, but yeah, we got everything tight. We went and did the wedding. He was happy. We were happy to help out. We got a little money, and then I thought, okay, we're done. 2 weeks go by, and I get the call from my friend who got married, Michael, and he says, there's these people in the Poway High School District. They're having a Poway high school beauty pageant that's Beatles themed, and they're looking for a Beatle band. And I'm like, Michael, I was just helping you out, He goes, no, they want to audition you. I already told you about that. Told them about you. And I'm like, oh man, okay. This is 1999. Yeah. I'd just been in San Diego for 2 years at that point. And then I said, okay, let me talk to the guys and see if they want to get together. And they said, yeah, let's get together. So we got together. The organizers came down. They hired us on the spot. Then we went and did this beauty pageant. I have a VHS of it, actually. Hilarious. And then next thing you know, somebody saw us there, and they hired us for something else.
Wow.
And then it just kept going.
For 20 years.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, it's crazy because not once did I have to hustle any gigs. I was always getting the phone calls, which is a nice thing. And I think a lot of it had to do because we really were extremely focused on delivering the music as it should be. We weren't into the theatrics of calling each other Ringo or whatever and wearing wigs. We wanted the music to be the focus. Yeah, because any hardcore Beatles fan has heard those songs so many times. You can't improvise. You can't fuck around with that. You got to give them what they're used to. And we kicked in a little extra rock and roll energy, and then in the beginning we stayed away from all the hits. We were just doing all the B cuts and doing like the weird little songs that they would put out here and there, because I knew that they would appreciate that too and go, oh, I don't have to hear Twist and Shout for a millionth time again. You know what I mean? So that really worked to our favor. But then we'd get hired and people would say, oh, can you guys play something for da-da-da? Can you guys play? Okay, so we'll learn it, And then we ended up with like 3 hours worth of Beatles songs. I mean, that was a lot of songs. Wow. Yeah, we could play them all night. And we throw in Chuck Berry and, Little Richard, songs that the Beatles used to cover, basically, from the rock and roll 50s.
So you've been in a lot of projects and bands, which we've talked about.
Yes.
Avengers, Zeros, Riot Act, Wolverines. We didn't even cover some of those.
Oh, my God,
Color, MCM and The Monster. What is and was your favorite experience being in a band?
I think just getting out and playing in front of people. All of them, yeah. And, when you play a full house, I mean, that's just awesome, I mean, it just happened last June with the Damned. I mean, there was, I think, 5 out of 8 gigs were sold out before we even hit the road, We're talking theaters, and that was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. It's a little intimidating sometimes, but you just got to go for it and make sure you're in tune.
Do you get intimidated after all you've been through?
Oh, well, sometimes you kind of like, you're
really?
Like, oh my God, I don't know. But you got to stay into, make sure your guitar, your amps, your bass is in tune, your guitars, everything's good to go, and you got no technical problems. Be extremely well rehearsed. That's the main thing, because that gives you more confidence when you know you got your parts down. Even if you do rehearse on your own, once you get on stage, you're like, okay, I'm not gonna fuck up. Yeah.
Jello, when did you first meet him? What were your thoughts?
Dead Kennedys playing the Mabuhay way back in early 70. Probably when we moved there, 78, I think. Because I think in 77 we were first couple of times. I don't think they were a band yet. I think they were more of a band in 78, early 78, somewhere in there. And it wasn't really my thing. But I remember one time him and we had, become a little bit of friends. We weren't super friendly, but we fought. Everybody the word would get out if there was a party going on in somebody's apartment or something, and then everybody migrates to that place, and then I think there was one night when there was a party in South Mission, and I'm walking down the street and there's Jello walking to the party, so we just kind of met up and walked. And I remember I had this funny story with had these Beatle boots that used to belong to the drummer in the Flaming Groovies, and the Zeros opened up for the Flaming Groovies twice at the Temple Beautiful, where we played with the Clash.
And Victor ended up playing drums for
many years later. Yeah. But the reason the Flaming Groovies played there was because they had lent their sound system to the Temple Beautiful so they could have concerts. And so we had played with them twice. And then some months went by, whatever, and then we go to the Mabuhay to play. And the Flaming Groovies had played the Mabuhay the night before, and the drummer left his drum kit all, he tore it down and put it away. But inside the bass drum, there was this pair of genuine Beatle boots, they had gotten in England when they were in England in 78 or 77 or whenever they went up there to record with Dave Edmunds. And Tony, the roadie, and I were over there unloading the equipment, and Tony goes, "Oh man, look at those boots." And I was like, "Man, don't fucking steal them, dude. Leave them alone." I already know what he was thinking. And that was it. I didn't think anything of it, whatever. And the next day, what's he wearing? The boots. When I saw him, I said, "Dude, you fucking took those away, man. What the fuck?" "Oh, man, come on. Why they leave them there, man? I'm going to wear them." I said, "Oh, God damn it." Okay, whatever. And then some time went by, and then I found these really nice, super pointy patent leather shoes that were really nice. And Tony was just like all over those. "Oh, man, I really want those shoes. I really want those shoes, And finally, he's like, "I'll give you those Beatle boots, And I'm like, "Oh, man." I said, "All right, I'll take them." I thought, hey, I didn't steal them. He stole them, and time gone by. And so I ended up with the boots, and they were really nice. Really nice. They were genuine Beatle boots, and unknown. And then years later, my friend Cecilia, who was the drummer in Frightwig, she really liked them a lot, too. She was just like, "Oh, those are really cool," whatever. And it was her birthday. I just gave them to her. So here you go, my boots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I gave them to her for her birthday.
That's generous.
Yeah, well, she was my friend. Her and Bobby Castro. Bobby Castro was my best friend in San Francisco for many years. He was a photographer. He took pictures of everybody. He passed away in 2018, and he left behind 50,000 negatives. And it's anybody and everybody you can think of, from the Rolling Stones at the Winterland in 1972, The Clash, Susie Sue, Lemmy.
Who has those?
His sister.
Okay, so it's not gone.
No, she's
hopefully be shared sometime.
Yeah, and I told her a long time ago. A few years after Bobby passed away, I said, you got to do something with those. Do
history.
Table, coffee book, something.
Yeah, history. It's history. You got to preserve it.
And Bobby had a really great eye for photography. He was the guy I always used for, Flying Color, for MCM The Monster. I always had him do the photos, But he passed away in 2018. He had a heart attack in his house.
Jeez.
And Bobby and Cecilia were a couple at one point, and then the three of us were always hanging out together around that. That was probably 82, 83, 84. And we were like the Three Musketeers. We were always meeting up for coffee, always hanging out together, always going to gigs together, And then I'd go hang out at Cecilia's gigs. She'd go hang out at my gigs, and Bobby would be there too. And yeah.
Oh, you got to tell me GG Allin. You opened up for GG Allin. What band was that with?
MCM The Monster.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was MCM The Monster at the Covered Wagon.
Wow.
Off of Howard Street in San Francisco, probably, I want to say early 88, somewhere in there. Right after the Flying Color broke up. Because we broke up, late 87, early 88. So
a rap band.
88, somewhere in there, yeah.
Basically opened up for GG.
Yeah.
How did that go over?
Well,
who was the headliner?
GG Allin, of course. We got there early for sound check, and then we were like, hanging out, and then we go to the bar after we do sound check, and then I think it was the sound man was hanging out at the bar with us too, and then he goes, just for your information, you might not want to be standing in front of the stage when GG Allin comes on, because he usually takes a shit on stage and throws it at people. We're like, oh.
You're like, what?
Huh? Holy shit. So, okay, thanks for the warning. And sure enough, man, we play, but there's a lot of people, and then we're like, okay, we're done, and we put away our guitars, and then we're like, let's go to the bar, and we're on the bar, and everybody's watching GG Allin, and next thing you know, you hear the crowd just go, oh, ah, and we're like, okay, we know what he's doing. Yeah, we'll just stay over here at the bar.
Oh.
Yeah, that was.
Did
crazy.
you meet him or anything?
I didn't talk to him. I mean, no.
But did you see him? Or
I saw him. Yeah.
Sound check
At sound check. Yeah, we were hanging around.
And was he like normal, or was he?
He looked a little, his crazy bald head and his weird mustache thingy, Fu Manchu thing that he had. But no, I didn't bug him or anything, But yeah.
You weren't starstruck?
No, not really. I mean, he didn't become that legend that he was at that time, I think he was on his way.
He started off as like a pop punk type of thing, He didn't have, the songs weren't too bad.
No, yeah. Crazy scene. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
So you didn't even know who he was when you opened up for him.
Well, we've heard of him, but his notoriety and his insanity wasn't like
full-fledged.
Yeah, at that moment where it only happened years later. I think maybe even after he died, people were like, "Oh my God, he was crazy. He did this and he did that." I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to have those gigs. Yeah.
You did another solo album, the music for Cats.
Oh yeah.
Who's on that? Or
it's mostly me, just me. Yeah. The first one was the Hector album, which is technically the Flying Color's second album, right. But and then in '96 we were in Madrid with the Zeros, and this guy from Bambalam Records had flown in from Mallorca to go see the Zeros play. And he was a big Flying Color fan, really, because that Flying Color album made a big impact on a lot of people. I think it ended up being number 73 in the best pop records of all time on Charleston Press years ago, and I was really surprised by that. But then we did put a lot of work into it, and I was hanging out at this restaurant right next to the club that we're playing after sound check with the guys in the band, and this guy comes up to me, goes, "Hey, my name is Manuel, blah, blah, and I got this record label, Bambalam Records, and I really love Flying Color album, I would love to put something out if you want to do, like, a solo album or something." And I was like, what the hell? Okay, let's talk, and then, so we kept in touch, and eventually, Music for Cats came out, and I had done most of those recordings at home on a 4-track cassette. Porta Studio, Tascam Porta Studio, but I was always very, very, very like picky about the tracks and what I was doing. And you can afford to like play things back and not be on the clock at a recording studio where you got to pay. You can go, okay, I can do that better, or I can, and I'd bounce things around and stuff. And I had a lot of stuff already recorded for the CD too, like ready to go. And so I sent them all that, And I took it to Chris von Schneider, who used to be in Flying Color after Richard Chase left, and Chris had a recording studio under in the basement of his house, and at the time it was state of the art because he had everything hooked up to the computer, digital, but it was kind of like one of those Mac TV screen type computers, those ones that were like, and so him and I worked in there a lot, and I overdubbed some vocals and maybe some cymbals here and there and stuff. And that's how we got Music for Cats done, And then I went out there September of '96 to promote it and toured for 2 weeks through Spain with that. And I took my brother. That was the first time he ever went to Europe. I said, let's go, play rhythm guitar. And then, and at that time I had a girlfriend in Barcelona, and she played bass. So she was a bass player. And then she knew a guy who was a drummer. in Barcelona, so that he became the drummer for that tour, and then we did the tour for 2 weeks. That was Music for Cats, 1996. And then I didn't really put out anything until Sue Records, who offered me to put out a solo record, which was My Beautiful Tragedy, which came out about 3 years ago. Yeah, and Sue Records is owned by Ryan Mayers, who originally started Sue Guitars, which is like sort of a boutique guitar, electric guitars that are like always red with white pick guards, and the amps were like red with white, up fronts. And then he said one day, I'm going to make a record label. I met him actually at a Dragons concert in LA when the Dragons played in Koreatown, and I drove up there to do the gig, and Mario already knew him. And then the guy, Ryan, approached me backstage and goes, oh man, I love the Zeros, Blake told me the whole story, whatever, everything was cool. And I thought, man, this guy's cool, because he told me, he says, I almost committed suicide being the only punk in my town, and people harassed me a lot. And when I heard Don't Push Me Around, I thought, yeah, fuck this, yeah, don't push me around. And I thought, man, I was really touched by that story. And then we became friends, and then anytime the Dragons would play, he'd fly out here. He was at the Casbah. He was at the Long Beach gig that we did back in May.
Was that the last show?
I think so. That was the last show.
So, right?
So far, yeah. I mean, I kind of was hoping we would have been able to done the Michael Monroe stuff. But
that would have been amazing. But Mario just started a new job.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He can't.
Yeah, he can't just take off, But that's how I met Ryan, and we stayed friends. And then, he offered to put out the record. So let's do it, and that was cool. But I'm always recording, and I always help people who are talented songwriters and singers that really don't have an access to a recording equipment. In 2009, I helped this friend of mine, Regina Leonard. That girl can sing, and she wrote these really cool country rock songs, and she didn't really have any money to go to the studio, and I had my 16-track digital at home, and I said, well, come on over, and we'll knock out 9 songs that she had, and I think I spent like 3 months working on that with her.
You can get some really good sounding stuff in the living room or a closet.
Yeah, you can nowadays. You can. You just got to know how to use the stuff and have a good ear, But no, I keep in touch with some of them through Facebook, like Nikki Alexander, who used to be known as Nicky Beat, the drummer in the Weirdos. Yeah, he was an amazing friend back in the day, because when the Zeros started going out LA to play, it was always Zeros and the Weirdos, and maybe some other band. Wow. And so it just became this thing, and then, because I guess there weren't that many bands, that were punk at the time, so it was a limited choice. And Nicky took us under his wing, we were just kids, and Bob and I would always do sound check, and the band would do sound check, they would do sound check, and then Nicky would go, let's go get a hamburger, so we'd get in his car. He had this old late 50s like Oldsmobile, and we'd get in that big old car and drive down to a hamburger place and eat with him and hang out. And then he just became, like I said at one time at some interviews, the Weirdos became like our uncles, our punk uncles. They were a little, they were in their 20s, but for us they were a lot older, because we were teens, But we were really close to the Weird. Those guys were basically, like I said, they were like family, They were like always were really nice to us, and Nicky in particular was really cool. And he lives in San Pedro. He's originally from San Pedro, and we stay in touch on Facebook and stuff. Yeah. But at one point, he went from being the Bags drummer, then he sat in with the Bags and the Weirdos in the Bags. Then he became the drummer for LA Guns. For a while, and I don't know.
That's a weird.
Yeah, and I think that left a bad taste in his mouth. The whole music business.
Really,
thing.
In his mouth.
Yeah, he just kind of like fuck everything, and he disappeared for a while, and I didn't know where he was until 2000. I think we went to Brendan Mullen's house. He was having a barbecue where all these old punk bands showed up, like Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's was there, and Jane was there, and then Nicky showed up. It was totally crazy. I hadn't seen him in ages. And that was the last time I seen him.
So was it like a big reunion?
Yeah, it was cool. And it was cool. But who else? I mean, Gesa. I've known Gesa forever, and when I was in Chula Vista Junior High, there was this really great teacher in family ed. This woman who was just like very factual, very straightforward, and she pretty much put the fear of God into everybody about drugs. and not that she was, tooting a horn or anything, but she showed us these films, and she just kind of was very factual about everything, and it really got me thinking, And then we started going to LA to play, and I was like, people at that time, Quaaludes were really popular, and cocaine and all stuff. And believe me, we got to.
Did you really get into drugs or anything? Not at all.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. I was like, no, that teacher got the message across to me, and I was like, no, it's not the thing for me. And and then when I discovered liquor, was living at the Canterbury, and there was a peppermint schnapps bottle. I had a couple of shots from that, and I was like, "Oh, this is fun," And then I remember maybe shortly after that, I was at the whiskey, and I got really drunk on Budweiser, and that was a mistake. And I was like, "Oh, I was sick the next day," and then I didn't drink for a long time. I was like, and then I think when I reached 21, people would take you to bars and stuff, so I got a little buzz there. And I remember New Year's Eve 1980, Baba and I were hanging out in San Francisco, and we were like in his apartment. We're like, just kind of like, what are we going to do? Let's go out and do something. So we're like, let's go crash parties. So we just got out of us, because, you're living right in the city. There's all these apartment buildings everywhere. And you see these clusters of people walking, obviously going to a party. So we like latch onto the back end of these people and then walk into these apartments and grab a beer and then, just hang out, like pretend like we're part of the crowd. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, and who are you guys? And we're like, okay, let's get out of here. And that
I've done that before.
That New Year's Eve, we got really zonked. Him and Bob and I, it was so funny. But and it didn't become habitual. I got to the point where like it didn't become that because I didn't want to,
Yeah.
When you're a musician, you got to think about, like, in my case, I was like with the Monster, and when I was 32, and we used to get all these people in the clubs, and we used to get treated like royalty by the clubs because we brought them in tons of business, because they sold shitloads of tickets, they sold shitloads of booze. And they were like, what do you guys want in the back? We got Jägermeister, we got Cuervo, we got, Heineken, whatever. They didn't just give us drink tickets. They asked us what we wanted,
Wow.
We're like, wow. And we'd have all this top shelf liquor, And then I remember one night at the Kennel Club I was playing, and I got really buzzed, and I thought I was playing great. And a friend of mine was videotaping the whole
Oh.
So like 2 days later, he's like, I made you a copy of the concert. You want to check it out? Yeah. And I'm watching and I'm going, oh my God, I'm fucking everything up.
Oh. Wow.
And that was a moment of an epiphany moment. I was like, okay, what am I, a musician or a drunk? I got to make a choice here.
Wow.
So now I'm going to stick to the music. And yeah, man, it was like, that was a hard kick in the head.
So Victor is a huge Kiss fan.
I know.
And did you turn him on to Kiss? Or
Yes. Yes. Basically, Victor's 13 years younger than me. In 1975, when I met Baba in Chula Junior High, we just made new friends, him and I. We were new friends, and the Midnight Special came on TV.
Oh.
And who's on there? Kiss. And I'm this 15-year-old kid watching these guys. I'm going, what the hell is going on here? This guy, platform shoes, he's got leather with feathers, and he's got lipstick and makeup. It's like, and I'm trying to make sense of this visual madness, and I'm like, and so then the next school day, which was Monday, I meet Baba for recess, and I said, hey man, I saw this band. I can't tell what's going on. They're like, I don't know if they're gay or what. And they're called Kiss. He goes, oh yeah, they're really cool. I really like them. I'll bring over my records. You can borrow my Kiss records. And he brought the three first Kiss records. That's before Kiss Alive even came out. And so I listened to them. I got totally into them, and I became a fan, And then I Victor and I were sharing a room at that time. We lived on Broadway and H behind a shopping mall down there next to a Firestone tire shop. And I had this big poster of Kiss, a collage poster with everything. And of course, every morning Victor would wake up. He's maybe going on 3 years old. Wake up to Gene Simmons, spitting blood.
Awesome.
And
you raised him right.
So, and then he couldn't say Kiss. He used to call them Kukai, because in Spanish the word cucuy means, it's a slang word for like the monster under the bed, or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's cucuy. So he used to mix him up and go Kukai.
Wow.
and he got into Kiss, later on too. But that was my first major sports arena concert. It was Kiss at the sports arena.
Oh, what year?
I had to have been early '77.
So that was Kiss Alive 2.
Kiss Alive.
When they may have recorded some of that then.
Yeah.
There.
But because
Kiss Alive 2.
I went with Baba and I weren't of driving age. We didn't have any cars. But his older sister Michelle drove us down there, and the three of us went to see the concert.
Wow.
And it was, I believe it was Montrose, Heart, and Kiss.
Wow. I can look that up. I have the books.
Yeah. It was somewhere in '77. I think it was like early '77, somewhere there. But yeah, that was the first time I ever experienced loud music. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And
did that affect you in any way? Did it influence you? Or?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, the one song that Bob and I were learning our instruments to at his garage was Strutter.
Really? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we played over and over and over. We'd do Strutter, Pills by the Dolls, and what was the other song? Those two, we were always going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I remember that. Yeah, the Bo Diddley song, but the Dolls version, and then Strutter by Kiss. Yeah. And then Bob's dad would show up, and he had a Lazy Boy in there in the garage, and he'd sit down there with a cigar. Are you guys playing the Johnny Cash? It was so funny. But yeah, his parents were cool. They were very patient with us because we were noisy.
Wow.
They were very
that's
supportive.
awesome.
Yeah. A long time ago, yeah, down in National City.